None of you will leave here alive.
At first, I was a little hesitant to include this game on my channel. I cover Souls-likes, horror games, and Metroidvanias, and I wasn't sure if it was Metroidvania enough to showcase it. Well, I was wrong. I'm glad I was, because this is a stellar game that I think you'll love. Hello everyone, I'm Midlife Maestro, and I'm here to review Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. The Lost Crown is an action-adventure game as well as a Metroidvania, and that's shown from the start. You're Sargon, a warrior in an elite group called the Immortals, and you and your comrades are fighting an intense battle against a foreign invasion. Wait, I'm not the prince?
What?
No, relax, Sargon's cool. It is action-packed, and you barely notice that this is a tutorial. The other Immortals are amazing, and the opening makes you really excited to move the story forward so you can figure out how to use all these 6 skills. After winning the battle, you're invited to the royal court for celebrations. This is when the prince gets kidnapped and you have to save him. Wait, your mentor kidnaps him?
Anahita, what is this all about?
I wasn't planning on killing you, Sargon. Stay out of this.
Yeah, but all is not as it seems, and time is not what you think it is. Remember that before jumping to conclusions, Sargon. All will be revealed during the course of the game. Typical for Metroidvanias, Sargon starts out with some basic skills, and you learn more and more abilities as you progress through the game. One class of skills is time powers, abilities that will help you in exploration and combat, and are necessary to progress the game. One ability you have from the start is parrying. If you're like me, you aren't confident in your parrying skills, and in many games, you can avoid doing it altogether by dodging or rolling. You can in Prince of Persia as well, but you won't want to. Parrying is amazing. You get this rich sounding clang that feels good. If the enemy does what's called a reckless attack, you can parry with a vengeful counter, which gives you an awesome little cutscene of taking on the enemy that differs depending on which enemy it is. This takes enemy variety, which is good without this feature, to the next level. Also, parrying increases your Athra meter, which, when full, allows you to unleash attacks with amazing animations called Athra surges. And you'll want to use these as often as possible. Your melee weapon is a set of twin blades that you can upgrade through the game. And your ranged weapon you'll eventually get is a bow. You can upgrade the bow as well. Upgrade mats can be a bit hard to find, and sometimes you'll need to complete challenges to acquire them. You don't usually know which challenges will give you upgrade mats, kind of forcing you to complete all of them if you want to fully upgrade your weapons. The controls are smooth as silk. There is not a hint of jank in the game. Even though you only have twin blades as your melee weapon, there are charge attacks and what seems like an infinite number of combos you can learn to keep combat fun and interesting. Yeah, it never gets boring. You need the smooth controls because platforming is in the name of the game. Well, not really, but it should be. Little known fact, but the game was originally going to be called Prince of Platforming. Sargon swings from bars like a Cirque du Soleil acrobat. It's an amazing feeling, because you feel like you're flying through the air with him. You have to learn to believe in Sargon and yourself, because you're going to be swinging off those trapeze bars and dashing between spikes a lot. There are so many spikes. Too many spikes. There are an aggressive number of spikes in the game. If you're shit at platforming and you don't want to do it, there's hope. There are tons of accessibility options, with one being that you can skip platforming sections that are part of the main story. You can't for challenge ones though. Those you just have to learn, but if I can do them, I know you can too. Yeah, so you can choose individual things to crank down the difficulty, and you can do so for the story in general too. Now let's look at this bonkers platforming. Look at these centipede monsters, isn't that a cool twist? They make way for you, but you can't touch them and you'll have to start the platforming sequence over. Failing a platforming sequence isn't too frustrating though. You only lose a little bit of health, then you start back the most recent safe spot that you landed. There are some crazy platforming challenges. There was one or two where I was disappointed in the rewards. One was a 4 to 5 minute challenge that gives you a new skin. That ain't cool. Should have been an upgrade mat. This one is the hardest one in the game and gives you one upgrade mat and a lore item. Nah, son, I want a cash prize. So maybe you'll fall on spikes more times than more. The biggest reward for success is progressing in this beautiful world. The graphics are amazing, anime-like. This is a beautiful game.
What the hell was that?
Look how lush and green it looks here. It makes me miss warm weather because I want to go outside and sit on a bench and just soak in the view. Look at this elevator contraption. Wouldn't you want to take this elevator? It reminds me of a fancy ski lift or a funicular. Look at the day sky. Look at this night sky. This boss is sick. This area looks like it would smell bad. This area looks like pain. The biomes are rich, numerous, and different from one another. Love was put into the scenery, and it shows. Nothing about graphics was rushed when making this game. Let's look at some awesome animations. Since this is Metroidvania, we gotta talk about the map. It's clear, it's sharp, and it's easy to read. It can be as detailed as you want it to be. Separate from other accessibility controls, you're given the choice to either use a map that marks important locations, block paths, and where you need to go next, or a bare-bones map that makes you look for all these things and mark them yourself. Now, I usually play on normal level because I don't want to be seen as a poser, but understand I don't think there's anything wrong with using accessibility options. But I picked the map because it gives you hints, and I'm still convinced that that was the right choice. A feature that I've never seen in a Metroidvania before is the ability to take a screenshot of a location and pin it to the map. This might be a game changer, and I hope it becomes standard for Metroidvanias to come. Instead of putting a question mark or whatever icon at a tricky point in the map, which you can also do, you can just click on the screenshot and see exactly what you were thinking of when you took the pic in the first place. It's so much better. You can't pin photos with no limits though. You start with a few, and you get to obtain the ability to do more as you find an upgrade item for them. I think for me, that the most useful part of pinning screenshots was that you could tell at the spot that you're marking is a tricky spot for platforming that you didn't want to deal with at the time, or a spot where you didn't have the ability to progress, or a puzzle that you couldn't quite figure out. Now, this isn't a puzzle-heavy game by any means, but there were a decent number of them. I thought they were challenging and fun. They led to some cool treasures or to different parts of the map. The rewards were good and reflected the puzzle's difficulty. Let's talk about the narrative.
The once fertile plains of Fars had become as barren as the Loot-Salt Desert.
The story is told to you in cutscenes. There are also lots of lore items you can get to add richness to it. I don't like games that are too story heavy, and this seemed to have a good balance. While the story was good, I felt like I didn't get to know Sargon very well. I thought he'd be an arrogant ass, at least at first, and we get to know more and more about him through the course of the story that would make him more sympathetic and likable. That doesn't happen. He's a likable dude from the start, but there's no edge to him, no compelling background. He just seems happy to be doing what he's doing and wants to help people. I think that's admirable, but it doesn't add to character development. I just wish there was more character development. I mean, Sargon does kill some of his friends. Dude, talk about that. Show me a Sargon who's trying to make peace with the fact that his friend's blood is on his hands. There's so much more that could have been done here. Just adding a few paragraphs to the story could have made all the difference. But understand, I don't think the story was bad, far from it. And the side quests add great texture to it. There weren't a ton of them, but they were fun and they felt important, and they weren't just basic bitch fetch it quests. Apparently, if you play before patch 1.03, one could be bugged and the patch won't fix it. You have to install the new patch and start from a new save file. That is really shitty. I hope they patch the patch. It's possible they have and I just don't know it. You can let me know in the comments. Speaking of performance, I encountered one bug that I recall. Again, having to do with a side quest. It is fixable with reducing the frame rate. I think I encountered one game-ending bug, but it didn't repeat itself. Overall, the performance on PC was excellent, and I can't fault the game for a bug that may have been due to my PC and not the game itself. Combat, man, it is phenomenal. And it's not because there are a ton of weapons you can use with different movesets, because there aren't, but you get the most responsive set of controls I've seen in a Metroidvania ever. There is a seemingly infinite number of combos you can perform, and you can mix and match with your blades and bow, and you can even use your time powers. Add to that the after surges, which are cinematic as hell. If you do them right, you take a huge cut out of the boss's health bars, and most other enemies you'll just annihilate. There are some separate set of improvements you can make with the bow, like increasing maximum arrows. Oh, and you don't need to keep buying arrows from NPCs. Your arrows reset every time you rest at a backpack tree, which serve as checkpoints. Also, the game does a great job at setting up what I call refill stations for your arrows, because there are areas you'll need the bow for in order to progress. You really don't have to worry too much about conserving your arrows. Also, there are amulets, which give Sargon all sorts of advantages, like allowing him to shoot fire arrows. For value, I wouldn't say there are a ton of replayability options, but it's such a vast game that you can play for many hours beyond the main story. I would think a typical player would take about 40 to 50 hours to get 100%, maybe less. I'm a slow player. The game cost me $50, so that's about $1 an hour. I think that's fair. When I finished the main story, I had completed just over 70% of the game. So I say it has good value for money and lots of gameplay. I haven't heard anything about a DLC or adding New Game Plus, but the game's only been out for a few weeks, so I need to calm down. And last but certainly not least, the music. There are rock and classical elements, as well as influences from the music of Persia / Iran. The music was written by British composer Gareth Coker and Iranian composer Mentrix. Coker is famous in the video game music world, especially for his work on the Ori games. I hadn't heard of Mentrix, but she has music on YouTube which I listen to, and I can totally see why they used her talents to add authenticity to the score. And this underscores how much care went into every aspect of the game. It's not just let's add some banging music here, and I'll say there's nothing wrong with that approach, but it's more so let's provide music as art to this artistic video game to create a work of art that is greater than its individual parts. Over the top description maybe, but you get my point. This is not just a great game, this is a game that has pushed the Metroidvania genre beyond its previous limitations. It is innovative, and it sets the bar so high that I almost feel sorry for any AAA studio who wants to make the next great side-scroller. And innovation begets more innovation. 2024 is off to a great start in games, with Prince of Persia leading the year off right. And the final verdict. I score games on 5 categories, with a max of 2 points for each. For Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, narrative, 1.5. The story was good, but I would have liked to see more character development with Sargon. Graphics, 2. This is a beautiful game, and it's in the upper centile for Metroidvanias. It's a AAA game and it shows. Gameplay and mechanics, 2. I think the mechanics of this game are the best I've ever seen in this genre, and they're right up there when thinking about any game in any genre. Music and sound, 2. The use of Western and Eastern influences, classical and rock elements, they don't just supply a background to the game, it's part of the game. Replayability and value, 2. While there currently isn't a New Game Plus, there's so much to do in the game beyond the main story, and you can get plenty of hours of gameplay in to justify the $50 price tag. I give this game a Maestro Mark of 9.5, which tells you that I think you'll love it. Thanks for watching, everyone. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and please subscribe. I'm working hard to grow my channel, and it would really help me out a lot. See you around.